Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Restream podcast. I am your host, Rico. I will be joined shortly by my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Tonight, our good friend Daryl Rutherford from Toronto Specialized will be joining us. I'm going to have a little bit of a fireside chat. But before we do all that, if you guys would do us a huge favor, if you would please like, share, and subscribe to the show. It helps puts us out to a broad algorithm. Helps more people get a chance to find the show, and hopefully, if you know anyone that you can find that you find this information that we're talking about tonight useful or helpful at all, by all means, please share the show. And with that being said, I'm going to welcome in my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. Good evening, Chuck. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, buddy?
I'll tell you, just trying to maintain and stay positive. Even though I'm hearing a lot of bad stuff going on, but all in all, so far so good, and hopefully we're keeping our fingers crossed that it kind of stays at least at an even kilter right now.
That's all you can ask for. I think you guys in the States are better off than Canadians, as we're going to hear with our guest. And I'm pleased we got Daryl Rutherford to join us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He is the founder of a company called Toronto Specialized. They're based out of the Barrie, Ontario area. They do partial truckloads. I think they do like we'll ask Daryl. I think they do like 4 skids and up going for. They used to run just the West Coast, but now I think they may be doing some other things. So let's talk to Daryl. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast, Daryl.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming on.
Always a pleasure. How's everybody this week? Pretty decent?
Yeah, I think everybody's a little bit in knots. We don't know what's going to happen with this economic roller coaster we're on, and tariffs and all sorts of wars breaking out. And, we went from tranquility to terror pretty quickly.
Really quick. It even surprised me how quick it happened. You got to be nimble and be willing to change. I'm trying to think in anything great at the moment.
Well, I think that's other than being astute at what you do, I think that's certainly one of your strongest attributes is the fact that you are so nimble.
Yeah, we went from running the West Coast with everything to trying to do around the lakes, Ohio, like Toledo, Cleveland, really focus on Cleveland, Pittsburgh area. I'd even tried. I think Ohio is going to get hit hard. Not much coming in out of Cleveland at the moment, to even doing inner Ontario stuff. Winnipeg. It's shocking. Trying to stay at 5 skids and under now, but it's surprising. I'm really getting creative. I got one of my loads going out this week, and we're actually starting dropping in Thunder Bay, crossing through Pigeon River, and it's only adding 216 miles to the trip to Seattle.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it's a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. I knew that the tariffs were going to affect us. I don't know if it's just everyone's afraid, nobody knows. I was talking to my sales guy at Freightliner today, and Freightliners come to them and said they're guaranteed to July, and they're really seriously thinking about extending it. They're only going to put a $3,500 cap for a tariff coming to Canada for the trucks. So if you wanted to buy a Freightliner, the best thing is you're only going to get hit with $3,500 more money.
Wow. They obviously have the resources to absorb this.
I would think they're going to do it for a little while. I hope everyone thinks. I think there's going to be hopefully some good conversation, and things will change soon. But it's what do they do? Like, some of the price tags on the new trucks are like $270, right? At what point do they price themselves out of the market?
Well, that's what I think that's what happened with the Kenworth with the big long nose. I think they just got too expensive, and apparently they haven't been selling a lot of them.
No, I had one of my own robbers. I thought it was pretty funny. He was in there and he was thinking about buying one, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's the price?" And I just about fell over. Like, if you go to Gator in the U.S. and you get like 108, 120-inch bunk with it, it's got basically an apartment shower.
Oh,
You can understand spending some money on that, but you're living in it. But just a W900 with a 60-inch bunk, 345.
whoa!
Like, are you an idiot? Sorry, like it's
I was buying those 20 years ago, loaded with studio sleepers for $140,000 custom built.
yep, not now.
Good
I don't know.
Lord.
I don't know anything that is that you can make that sort of money to make those payments. Like you would be talking,
Woo.
yes, you're talking way over $5,000 a month. You're talking $6,000 a month if you're making payments on that. And if you're not making payments on it, you're paying cash for it, you're a bigger idiot.
Man, as my granddaddy used to say, that's higher than Poontang on a giraffe, boy.
That's why I made the decision. I chose to go with international. Resale's a very hard market to be in until you get really big. Like if I was a Challenger or oh my God, just Charger, that I can sit the trucks on my lot and sell them or have a used truck business. It might be a different market, but when I went with my internationals, I took them on a 5-year walkaway, market value lease. Watch my miles. I'm pretty good at running efficiently that way. Full maintenance, $4,800 a month. If I was an owner operator with one truck, the full maintenance helps, but that's still a big chunk of change.
Yeah, well, my rule was when I was looking after the fleet of traffics was we wouldn't take anybody on if their payments were one penny over $3,000 a month, and I don't think that's changed because there's only so many miles you can do in a month on a truck, and even if you take a brand new one, doesn't matter what you buy. Now, do you have a mileage cap on these?
No, there's no mileage cap on them. Sorry, 1,000,000 miles is the total in 5 years. So my warranty is out at 960.
Right.
So, I think I'll be under them. As long that's a tough one to say right now because we're running everywhere. So we're going to be putting on more miles. I've been very good at running them from Barrie out to the west and back to Barrie, planning out the drops, the picks, keeping it tight, right?
Yeah, Daryl, you're at 200,000 miles a year. And from what I figure, that's almost 4,000 miles a week. Pretty hard for any single to log 4,000 miles a week. Like it is impossible.
Right.
And the only thing, if you're running teams, you put a team on it for a year or two, and then you take them off and you run it on shorter runs. So you're not putting.
Yeah. So I just can't believe. I don't know what's going to happen to the market, even with the tariffs. Eventually, there's no more money to spend. There's no more money to buy groceries. Like I joined a men's group on Monday nights, and we were sitting there talking, and a couple of statistics come out that 80% of Canadians right now are $200 away from missing a payment.
Yes, that's a known fact. And that's under, I hate to get political on this show, and Rico, excuse me if I do. But, that's under 10 years of liberal leadership. And all of a sudden they've parachuted this Mark Carney guy in, and liberals are winning again. We deserve whatever we get. We elect them.
Yeah, I'll try to keep politics aside. I'm pretty conservative. It's the same crap no matter where it goes, but I don't understand the mentality of people. And I don't know if it's education or whatever, but it seems that everyone thinks that because their tariffs have gone up, that transportation has to get cheaper.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well, Daryl. I've noticed that.
Well,
I've noticed
you know
that
what?
as well.
You know where that comes from? gentlemen, you know where this comes from? So how this never used to happen, but how the market, and we talked a little bit about it on this show before, but I'll just remind everybody how this market works. You have factoring companies that are reporting everything to the load boards, like DAT especially, okay, because I would say they're the most progressive when it comes to mining data. And they're mining all this data and they're seeing rates go down and they're just putting it out there. This is what it paid from California to New York this week. And the shippers are buying this data and they're looking at the analytics and they're going, wow, it's 12 cents or 20 cents a mile cheaper this week. And they're posting their loads through a broker at 20 cents a mile cheaper this week than it was last week. And that's where this is coming from. We're doing it to ourselves.
It's funny, we used to do this all the time. I guess we'll go back to it. Somebody asked me, said, why y'all don't do the rates anymore? So this week, I'll just jump into it real quickly. We'll run through
Okay, go ahead.
I got it pulled up here. So for dry vans, we're showing the average rate this week for dry vans on the spot market is showing $1.55 per mile. An average contracted rate is at $1.92 for dry vans, and that's those rates don't include the fuel surcharge. With the fuel surcharge is showing 40 cents, so you would say $1.95 per mile on average for dry vans. Is what the information that DAT is showing. Jumping over into flatbed segment, we're showing an average rate per mile of $2.12 per mile, with an average contracted rate, average contracted rate of $2.74, and with the fuel, it's 48 cents per mile on a fuel surcharge. So you add the 48 cents into the 212 and 274 respectively on the contract rates. And jumping over into the reefers portion of the report, showing an average spot market rate for reefers at $1.80 per mile, an average contract rate of $2.17 per mile, and an average fuel surcharge of 43 cents per mile. So, and going back to just to kind of verify what you're saying, Chuck, and I'll start off going in reverse order with reefers, showing that spot market rate has decreased by 4 cents per mile since last week. The contract rate has decreased by 10 cents per mile, and the fuel surcharge has remained unchanged. Jumping back into flatbeds, showing that the spot market rate is actually neutral, hadn't had no change at all at $2.12 per mile. And on the contract rate, it actually increased by 5 cents per mile. And wrapping back up with the dry vans, is showing that the average spot market rate on dry vans has decreased by 3 cents per mile since last week. And the average contract rate is decreased by 11 cents per mile.
Wow. Now, what a lot of shippers do when the market is like this, they don't put anything on through their contracts if they can. Depends on how the contract is written. But most of them don't go with their contract and they'll put it on the spot market to get the cheaper rate.
Right. And I'm noticing, I've been noticing even in the area where I am, where you have a lot of the load to truck ratio is really in our favor here in the Southeast when it comes to reefers, but it's still very, very difficult to get the going rate that it should be paying. I'm noticing that the average rate on the spot market when it comes to reefers is about anywhere from $200 to $300 cheaper than what it should be.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
On average, a run from Atlanta, just to give an average run from Atlanta to Charlotte, North Carolina, that's 255 miles for a reefer. That used to be a pretty solid guarantee. You could probably get about $1,000 for that run. Now on the spot market, you're fighting to get $700.
Ooh, wow! And the only thing that has gone down is your fuel is down a little bit. But other than that, the cost, I was just talking to somebody the other day about what it costs down in their neck of the wood. Oh, I was talking to somebody in Virginia, and the shop rate down there is over $200 an hour.
Absolutely. That's all. That's across the board. That's across the board, and it's getting to the point to it's making it really, really difficult to maintain and sustain a viable trucking market. And the only thing that you try to have relationships to kind of help you out and insulate you a little bit, but even with the relationships in places, at some places, when people are out here taking really low rates,
there's no money left. You know what? By the time like, I was listening to what you were saying about the DAT report, and I would just, what's your biggest expense? It's your fuel and your driver. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, whether you're driving the truck or you've got a driver, that's irrelevant, because you both have to pay either a mortgage or rent. You both have to buy food. You both have to clothe yourself, and there's kids and everything else that you have to pay for. So it's irrelevant. And by the time you pay some sort of wage to yourself and pay for the fuel, there's not a whole lot left.
Yeah, and the thing about it that a lot of people, I don't know if people in the industry know it, but the thing that really is disappointing is that you still have these. It's gotten even worse than with some cases where you have these places where they want you. They have an appointment time set, and if you're late for the appointment, well, then you have to pay a fine.
Oh. Key.
But on the flip side of that coin, if you get there in your own time, and they can hold you without penalty for 6-7 hours.
Oh yeah.
And think everything is. And by the way, and after we held you for those 6-7 hours, we know that we've held you for that long, and they should understand that you're on a 14-hour rolling clock. And yeah, I'm sorry, we've exhausted all of the time that you have on your clock, but you got to get off our property.
Yeah. You know what? I really do believe under this new administration in the U.S. that we are going to see a change there. I think that drivers are going to start getting reimbursed. And I think that's part of the issue we have right now with so many crashes. I think a lot of these drivers are being detained at shippers and receivers and in traffic. I know that, the average truck is capable of doing, it depends where they run, but 500 to 600 miles a day, unless they're running through Atlanta or New York or Chicago. But now it's down to, 400 and change, unless you're going out in Montana and Wyoming.
Yeah, and it's all about your timing on when you're going to get loaded and when you're trying to travel through those major hub cities like that. That's the number one thing about getting through those places is the timing. If you time it right or you time it properly, you're going through in the middle of the night or something like that, you can kind of skate on through there. But of course, most deliveries, you got to have your deliveries at their appointed time, and most deliveries are going to be right there in that rush hour traffic.
Of course.
So getting there and like I say, it's getting in some cases, I think that truckers got to start going back to a lot of owner operators may have to start utilizing. I think there's Doc 411 or whatever, and Google the Google reviews of different businesses and stuff like that, because you really have to be more aware of the places that you're taking deliveries to, and the conditions in which you have to go through when you go to make those deliveries and pickups. Is getting, in my opinion, I'm getting concerned because it's getting a lot worse out here when it comes to just human decency. And now a lot of the places that I'm going to, and I know that we truckers have been our own worst enemy when it comes to how we take care of other people's property and things of that nature. We talk about it all the time about leaving the P-ballers and this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
But I'm really starting to see more and more places that I'm going to. There are no facilities available. They got porta johns lined up out somewhere out back in the yard somewhere, and that's it. You're here to pick up the freight and take whatever we give to you and get on through.
Yeah, and we're going to hold you for 7 hours. For 4 skids or a truckload, it doesn't matter. Nothing
Right.
should be 7 hours.
It's funny when you talk about that because we won't go to Keehee in Portland. It's almost $1,000 if you miss the appointment. You have to have 72 hours notice. So you blow a tire on the way, you're 2 hours. It's worse. Key put up a message that they'll tow you if you don't leave the property after you're done. Now
I've seen that. I actually seen that at a McLean facility as well in North Carolina. I've seen that if you don't leave the facility, even if you parked on the side road, they're going to call a tow truck.
Tow truck can tow you. So Costco used to be really bad. I remember years ago, I was sick as a dog. I just wanted to lay in my bunk. I wanted to give them the keys, but they made me sit in the room. The guys, all the drivers were upset because it could make them sick. Like, I was in bad shape. Ended up being there 7.5 hours for 4 pallets.
Oh, yeah.
I come back. I wrote a letter to the president of Costco in Canada. I cut up my card, told my wife I'd divorce her if she went on Costco property, and we have a room at Costco. I was dead against going to Costco. I don't know, about 5 years later, my West Air, where I was working as a contractor, talked me into going to Costco in BC, and I pulled in. They went to the pager system.
Yes.
Costco is beautiful to go to.
I know. I have to say, Daryl, that is the best place I have ever delivered a load in my entire life was Costco here in Ontario. This is a great story. It's the only time I've ever been there. And we had this messed up load, and I went and took it, and it was just totally messed up. Everything was wrong with it. And I handed the paper. When you get to Costco, for those people who haven't been there, when you get to Costco DC, it's like entering a port of entry or a border crossing between the United States and Canada. That's what it looks like.
Very efficient.
And I'm talking about 5 o'clock in the morning. There's a lineup of there's a line of 100 trucks, but they're moving briskly. And gets to my turn. I went inside. Woman says, "Whoa, this is a dog's breakfast." Hands me this pager. Said, "Go and park over there. There's a facility." Which was a porta potty. There's a facility over there, and then the pager will go off. And the pager went off 45 minutes later. She said it would take about that long. Backed it into a door. No human contact whatsoever. I could hear the tow motor going in and out of the trailer. Then all of a sudden, this pager goes off. It says, "You're empty. Please call security." I drive to security. I go in. This smiling face hands me the paperwork and said, "Have a nice weekend."
Yep.
They got it. God bless them, because they understand that people that drive trucks may go to Costco. We are their customer, where a whole lot of the other retailers treat truck drivers like garbage. And I don't know what the U.S. numbers are, but transportation is the number one industry in Canada. It could be train, it could be the rail, it could be people working in an office, but transportation is the number one employer. So we all have to shop somewhere. Why these big supermarket chains have to abuse their own customers who are truck drivers, I'll never understand it.
It doesn't make sense. So what do you guys think about this new law in the States that they're trying to get to make people force the shippers and receivers to make facilities available for the driver? I think it's awesome.
I agree, but we shouldn't have to it's awesome, but we shouldn't have to do this, because, as Rico said, what happened to human decency?
Yeah, it just seems like a basic human right that, and I get it, but for some things I get it, but it can't be that difficult just to have allow a break, to share the break room or whatever with their employees that are already working there. It's I've been to some places where I went around to the break facility inside of the building, and the janitor saw me in there and said, "You a truck driver?" I said, yes, ma'am. I said, oh, you can't be in here. You got to get out.
I don't disagree with you there, but I wonder if the government makes a law, when would owners like myself start thinking about the guys he's employing and just say, you know what, I don't need to move the truck. I don't need that person representing my company, my profession, and be a little bit more concerning on the level and the pay and get a more professional driver. I actually got a load going to Thunder Bay to T-Bay Tel, and broker didn't give us the phone number. I have a policy we call every drop, make sure they got a forklift, we don't want to show up without having the equipment.
Yeah.
So I called them, couldn't get a number for the receiver. So I'm like, okay, I'll call them. Went through their sales department, explained my situation, dealt with a great lady named Siobhan in Thunder Bay. She emailed the right person. The gentleman called me back about 2 hours later. I went through my series of questions, and his thought was, I've been here for 20 years. You're the first driver or company to call me and ask all the questions. Do you have a dock? Do you have a forklift? What time would you like my truck there? Do you want them in the morning? Do you want them in the afternoon? Any protocol? And he was like, I'm amazed. We've been getting loads for years and no one's ever called. So as soon as my truck shows up, I already know my driver's going to have a better experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You paved the way.
So I think what it is I've actually got rid of a couple more drivers. I think we need to think, we got to think of money. I'm in business to make money. But how much money am I making when I'm constantly getting the wrong driver? And how much money am I losing when someone doesn't want to see a Durango truck? Because they don't want to deal with that driver.
Well, you know what? It's the old thing. It's the old adage, like, is it better if you don't have a good driver to leave your truck parked against the fence, or to put somebody in it that is incompetent and have that truck upside down or totally demolished in a wreck? How much money do you make?
Right.
So hire
to bring the decency back so we don't need laws like that. I think that it's went that way because of some of us owners not having the best driver. And I have to admit, the last one that I let go, I put him in the truck just to have the truck going down the road. And a couple customers called me and how he was bad-mouthing me on the dock and everything. And these are people I've dealt with for 20 years that know me personally. And it hit me. Maybe I'm the problem.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself. You know what? We all have been desperate and we've hired somebody that we knew. The little man inside never gives us bad advice, but when that person is in front of you and you're interviewing him, the little man is going, Daryl, don't hire this guy. He's not for you. But you're going, no, I got to get those loads moved and I have nobody else. And you get desperate and this is what happens.
Yeah. I think it's a combination, but I'm glad to see someone stepping up, talking. I know there's some talk about the ELDs, $700 million they've spent to write tickets for drivers parking illegally and enforcing the ELD rules. And the one, I forget the gentleman that was saying it, the senator, but he's like, maybe we should take the $700 million and build parking spots.
That's a huge issue. That's a huge issue because the like you said, you got all these places that don't want you parking on their facilities, and then if you have a late delivery, like some of these places, a lot of these grocery warehouses and different things of that nature have deliveries in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And so when you got to go and make a delivery and they finish unloading you can't stay on the property. Well, then you have to go and find somewhere to park. Well, some places they'll give you citations if you park on the shoulder of the road, on the exit ramps. They'll give you a citation. And by that time of the night, you're talking 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Every truck stop is full. It's full to the gills. So and every truck stop, every rest area, unless you know of a little cubby hole somewhere that don't nobody else know about, finding parking is going to be slim to none.
But, yeah, it goes back though, Rico, to that's the danger when we go into areas we're not familiar with. When you were running back and forth between Atlanta and North Carolina there for years, I bet you knew every parking spot on every road between those two centers.
Yeah, you like I say, you have to know. You definitely would have to know a couple of different little cubby holes, and that does come in handy if you have been running that route for a while, and you're familiar with different little places that will allow you to park. It definitely helps out. It saved my butt a time or two.
Well, have either of you guys had to pay for parking yet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No problems at all. I'd rather pay for parking than be circling and getting tired and having a problem. But it's funny that you mentioned that. The road I run out to Seattle,
right?
Got buddies that want to run 80. I stay off 80. I even cross at the Sioux and go through northern Michigan, which saves me 300 kilometers to Fargo. But I never have a problem finding a place to park until I get to Seattle.
Yeah. And Seattle's bad. That city is brutal.
If you don't know people and don't have friends and don't know where to park, it is pretty tough. But it's also, if you park somewhere and behave and the security guards, they'll actually let you park there and they'll police the other guys that make a mess. It's funny, but why do we have such a hard time finding places to park? Like,
we have trouble finding free parking. My understanding, now I'm not on the road anymore, but my understanding from being at Matt's is there's a lot of parking available through these companies that are offering parking services.
I've seen that, the truck parking club. I've been that a little bit. You pay to park.
Yeah,
I think it's but this is another expense because it's, I don't know what the cost is. I think it's around $20 a night, if I am not mistaken. And, that's an extra at least $5,000 a year out of your bottom line.
It adds up.
It does. Because gentlemen, did you forget we're in a penny business?
We are in a penny business, but there is a tax deduction for that. So it's not, you got to sort it all out. But, when I pull into Marysville and I pay $10 to park, or it might be up more, but I think it was $12 to park.
Yeah.
Got a parking spot. They had security, but they gave you a shower. So were you really paying $12 to park, or were they just saying, spend a little bit of money here so we can stay in operation?
Yes, because it costs a truck stop $20 a day for a parking spot.
Correct. But now the truck stops are also, I used to love having breakfast. I'm a big breakfast guy.
Right.
But it's $20 to have breakfast now.
Yeah. That's why people are they're cooking in their trucks. There's another $5,000 minimum a year for your breakfast.
So how do we find a way to get the restaurants back busy at breakfast time and put a special for a guy so he gets out of the truck and socializes some?
Well, now that most truck stops have went away from the old family style, or a lot of even the TAs and everything. A lot of them have gone away from the old country prides. It's hardly, I don't think you hardly find any TAs with the country pride anymore. Petro still have a couple of iron skillets, but everything's kind of going the way of the fast food.
Because you know what, you're 100% right. It's all fast food, which is junk food, and the stuff they sell in the store. There may be a couple of healthy options, but there's not much. And part of it comes from a lot of our drivers are ethnic people. I know in Canada, I would say, I don't think I'm out of line. I'd say 75% in this region where we live are ethnic people. And ethnic people do not eat in restaurants on the road. They hardly eat in restaurants. They just don't spend their money that way. So their volumes have dropped way off, where years ago, we ate 3 meals a day in restaurants. 2 anyways. You had your breakfast, and most guys stop for lunch, stop for a cup of coffee maybe. And you stop for a late dinner somewhere. But you know what? Those days, these guys bring food with them.
Yep. I personally, that's what I've gone to. I try to do all my meal prep at home and take all my food with me for the if however long I'm going to be out.
With so much emphasis on health, right, and how healthy you are.
Oh yeah, and the food in those. I was just got to plug my computer in. I didn't realize it wasn't plugged in. And definitely the food in truck stops is anything but healthy. That's the last thing it is, and it's expensive.
Terribly expensive. Terribly expensive for the quality of food that you receive.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. The sad part about it is you're paying prices for a mid-range dining experience, and I mean, and they're serving you a $2 steak.
Yeah, that's very generous of you to say mid-range. I would say it's pretty low range.
Well, I mean, you could go some restaurants you could go to for the price that you end up paying at the truck stop. You could go to a nice Outback or a Longhorn. I mean, a decent mid-level steak that a real steakhouse and get a really decent meal for the prices that you're paying at some of these truck stops, and the quality of the food that you're getting is terrible. I mean, hell, you
Well,
like I say, I mean, the definition of a $2 steak. I mean, that thing is about that thin.
I was in on my way to Matt's. I stopped in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and because I left really late in the day, I made it as far as Fort Wayne, and I pulled in and I went to I think it was a Longhorn Steakhouse, which is a chain. Normally, I'm not a big guy. I got to tell you, the meal I got there, and Longhorn didn't give me, they didn't pay me to say this or anything. I had an amazing dinner. I mean, like
probably the best value, I'll tell you, because Longhorn is owned by Darden Group, and that's the same company that I don't know if you're familiar with Capital Grill, but that's the same company that owns Longhorn. So I mean, so they do steaks right.
You know what? I had an incredible dinner with a glass of wine, and the bill was under $40. And had I had that same meal in Toronto, it would have been double or triple.
Oh, it's insane, the prices nowadays. I like to go out and have dinners with my wife, but we've went out a couple nights and it's like, we can't do this. We just can't do it. It's insane. $120, $130 for two people to have a decent meal. It's just like,
crazy. That, you know what? In Toronto now, it's with your tip and your tax and everything, is if you have an alcoholic beverage, you may want it or not want it, but if you have a steak, a lot of times people want a glass of wine, you're $100 a person with tip and tax. That's crazy.
It is.
Yep.
But the one thing about going out, and that's what I was trying to get back to what I was talking about, is the socialization. And so you demonize the driver, you put them in the truck, and they got to make money. And, people, I absolutely get really upset, and I've lost my cool on a couple people when you're trying to explain something and get the driver moving, and they're like, well, he chose to be the truck driver. That's like setting off C4 with me. This man decided to be a truck driver doesn't mean we need to abuse them or mistreat.
No, what right does that give you to abuse another human being because he chose to be a truck driver? You should be happy he's a truck driver because he keeps your production line going.
Right, but we've demonized them. We stopped them having a restroom. We've stopped them from having somewhere to sit and talk. Like TV rooms are closing, restaurants are closing. They're stuck in their truck, and even the ethnic parts, I'll go out of my way to talk to them because you get into that racism stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's no wonder the drivers treat the places they go the way they do. They're treated like they're the scum of the earth. And why is it that
they behave like it?
True, but that doesn't give us a right to treat them like that. At some point, we have to be the better person.
I think we have to. I think it's all of our jobs to educate them and teach them. The new guys, and they're from all over the world. They don't understand. They come here, and I don't think any of us would do any better if you picked us up, from what we do, and you sent us to India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or any of these countries, Iran, doesn't matter, and put us doing a job, a dangerous job in a situation where we're not familiar with the language or the culture or the customs. With nothing more than our ability to drive a truck. That's all we have.
Right. I've shown my guys because I have a mix of everybody because I'm pretty open.
Everybody does if you want drivers.
Well, no, I've actually taken the time to show our your born here Canadians the Google Translate app, so that if you're speaking with a person from India or you're speaking with a Russian or a Polish guy, I'll have conversations, and if we're having a hard time, I use it because it shows I'm trying, and usually ends up that the person becomes more open to me because you're not yelling at them. Because what happens to most people when they're trying to talk? They're trying to get through, and then they get louder, they get louder, they get louder, right? So just back out, talk, and then I've had some people where they've said, oh, they don't like certain people. And once I've got them talking and stuff, now they're like friends, right? And now they're starting to become Canadianized in a way, which is good because they want to be here. We need to be here.
Right. Listen, if we didn't, and it really burns me when I'm reading, Instagram, and there's a truck upside down in Northern Ontario, and you have these yahoos that are, there's racial slurs against these people at the worst moment of their life because they've just crashed a truck and maybe they're injured, and these idiots are saying horrible things about their ethnicity, and it's not right.
No.
I think as an industry, we're better than that, and we got to act better.
Absolutely, and do something to help them. Like you said, if you go to India and watch the way they drive, they've been there for 20 years, 23 years, 25 years. They come over here, we teach them our laws, but you're bred with the way they drive.
Yeah.
And you go to Milan, and I've seen some places because I think there was a show with the 5 top worst places to drive and stuff. And you're looking at stuff and going, screw that. I don't even think I would drive there.
Well, you know what? Do you guys remember that show that was on years ago, Ice Road Truckers?
Yeah.
Okay. And they took 3 of them. One of them was that girl, Lisa Kelly, and one was that very religious guy. He was of Polish descent. And I'm trying to remember his name. And I forget who the other guy is, but the Polish guy, he wasn't Polish, he was Canadian, but Dombrowski or something was his name. I can't remember his first name. And this guy lasted there about a day and a half, and he just cracked because he could not take the traffic and the lawlessness and everything else, and the roads.
It's insane. But when you think about that, you step back and think about it. It's okay. How do we, when I see someone doing something foolish or not understanding, I go into my Canadian mode and I walk out and say, hey, do you need some help? Can I show you something? I want to be a better person.
Right.
I want to help somebody. And I'm stuck on trying to make this a better industry. That's why I want to do my mentoring program. I don't want them guys crashing.
No, nobody wants a crash because you know what? In the end, first of all, it doesn't look good on the industry, and it costs all of us every time somebody has a crash. It's costing everybody because the reinsurance is out of the same pool we all swim in.
You got it, 100%. And I think sometimes it's not always a brown guy having the crash. They blame it on them. And it's just sickening. But what do we do? How do we change this? What can we do to change this?
Well, guys, you know what? It came across me one night on this show. We had a guest on, Mike. I think it's DeFazio or something. Old school trucking, and he's a gentleman's gentleman, and it dawned on me after the show, the only way we're going to fix this is we need to teach the young guys, or rat out the bad guys. When you see a guy driving an 18-wheeler down the road watching TV, report him.
Absolutely.
Because he's going to kill you or one of your friends or somebody in your family.
Yeah, it's one of the things with the new safety law. Everybody I've talked to hates it. I'm okay with it. It does cost more, but I like the fact that now the mechanic doesn't make the decision. They got to take pictures, send it in the ministry, it gets reviewed.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to take a lot of these bad actors that have paid for safeties and backyard stuff out of the industry. It hurts at the start because you have to adapt. You have to get your customers to pay you more because it costs you more. You got to pass it on. But all I hear is complain, complain, complain. And I'm like, every time someone starts talking about it, I'm like, I like it. I think it's great.
it makes it safer. You know, I'll tell you what, bad trucks are easy to pick out. You know, if all of a sudden you see a truck and it's got rusty wheels and the back of it, the rear is all bent in and there's rust and everything else, it's kind of a dead giveaway. Go a little further, check the truck out.
Yeah,
You know, if your truck is clean and if it's clean and orderly, they're not going to stop you. But let's get the bad actors off the road.
absolutely. But I think it's a step in the right way. I was actually trying to talk to someone. Does anyone know? Does a safety in the U.S. Because I got to send a trailer out, and I think it's going to be passed as safety. I haven't been able to get in because the shops we got to book way ahead now for safeties because they're way busier. If you get a safety done in the U.S., is it valid in Canada?
I think the annual might be. I think the annual might be, yes.
Okay.
I think so, but I wouldn't go. I would ask somebody that would really know, but I'm pretty sure it is. As long as the standard was up, same as ours, because that's it's got to be both sides of the border.
That's what I was thinking because we look at their equipment and we accept it. So I had one person tell me no, if it's Ontario plated, it has to be done in Ontario, and I'm like, no, because I've seen Manitoba stuff that's plated, and they go, or sorry, Manitoulin, they've got Ontario plated trucks, but it can get safetied in Saskatchewan and BC.
And it may never get to Ontario. It's like Maine plated trailers. You know, they never get to Maine.
Yeah. I hauled a lot of them when I was left TI when I was younger until they they changed some of the rules on plating. But I was really curious about that. But that's, I think, one step in the right direction. I think they need to change the melt program a little bit more.
I would agree.
I'm for everybody making trucking a red seal occupation.
Oh, it should be. This is insane. Do you know in Germany, somebody I know just had a property painted in Vancouver, paid a lot more money for a red seal painter from Germany. That's a house painter.
Yep.
You're talking about a guy, the worst thing he's going to do is he's going to spill paint on your floor. Okay. As compared to somebody piloting 80,000 pounds down the road and it's not a skilled occupation. Are you effing joking?
That's so they keep the rates low. So I know Mike McCarron's speaking out about it. I agree with him, the red seal, but I don't think some of these people are ready to pay for the experience and the profession. Like if you want red seal, I think it's great. Bring up the wages for the drivers, the companies, and have responsibility. But I don't think everybody's ready to pay the price to have a red seal trait.
Well, you know what? That's the cost. Okay. It's no different than try arguing with the guy at the corner that's selling you diesel fuel and you don't want to pay that much.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing. If they're getting a certain level of training, then they deserve a certain level of remuneration because they are that good.
I think it's great. I would want some certification so the insurance has to let it happen because I had to fight hard to get my program approved, and allow me to do it. But having an apprenticeship and having someone paid so they're involved with it, with an experienced driver, no team. I'm not talking team. I'm talking experienced driver going down the road, talking about bridges, talking about watching telephone poles, watching for planes, watching for that truck that's going to come across the median, how to know if it's the right turn, showing them how to back into a place. People pull into a place, they start panicking right away because there's no room. Hold on. Let's assess the situation, get out, walk.
Get out and look. You know what? They don't teach that anymore. Goal.
Nope.
I don't understand it.
Yeah. Get out and look at it from a different perspective.
Yes.
Get out, walk over here and look back at the duck. Go, oh, there's tons of, maybe you got to do an extra 2 moves, 3 moves. That would be a great help. But what do we have? Bottom dollar freight, many miles as possible. And I don't know if the Facebook video or TikTok video was true, but they said that JB Hunt was the safest carrier in the U.S.
That's very no. You know what? Listen, JB Hunt. I will say this about them: they have really, that company has totally changed. 30 years ago, I know they had team drivers being flown all over North America to pick up abandoned trucks. They would let anybody with a heartbeat drive, and you could call JB Hunt, get them to ask them to move a load for you. They can't because they're now a contract carrier.
Yeah,
right.
Drivers have predictable lifestyles. They're not hiring somebody without experience. One of the companies, and I will not mention the name, but it's one of the big ones in the U.S. They have a lot of crashes.
Yep.
They're self-insured. And somebody I know was down there visiting them, doing some sort of an audit or something, and said to them, "You've got a hell of a lot of crashes. How is this acceptable?" And they go, "Oh, no, we budget for that. Our way of making money is we take these people that have never driven a truck and we teach them how to drive a truck, and then we put them in the truck with an experienced trainer, and we pay them $400 a week once they get their CDL for a specific period of time, and they're running team. So they're paying a team driver $400 a week, and that's how they're making money. Now, to me, the whole concept sounds bizarre. It doesn't make sense, but I heard it from too reliable a source not to believe it.
There's actually companies in Toronto that charge to have trainees in the truck. So instead of paying them like a decent wage, we try to pay $750 a week when you're in training.
Right.
They have to pay $10,000 to be trained to work there, and then they have to work there for like 3 years. It's once again, it's how can we screw our fellow man to make a buck instead of how can we help our fellow man and we all make money.
Well, Daryl, what you described sounds like some sort of a slavery almost, indentured servants.
Indentured servitude, man. It was a case like that down here in Georgia where they were, the place down here got busted. They were flying workers in from China to work in a floor factory here in Georgia, and basically had all the people put up in houses all throughout a different little neighborhood. But that's I'm looking at the time. We're getting close on time. Before we get out of here, I just want to ask everyone that's tuning in and that's listening to send up a prayer for our good friend Hank Seaton. I don't want to get into too much of details, but I understand he's going through a little bit of a tough time right now. So if everybody would, please send up a prayer for Hank. We want to hopefully everything gets fully recovered, and we'll see him back here on the show sooner than later.
Yes,
but I just wanted to kind of put that out there to kind of send a prayer up for Hank.
Yeah, Hank Seaton, our friend who comes on here, is one of the best transportation lawyers in all America, has not been feeling well. He was in the hospital last week. So, yes, our prayers to Hank for a speedy and complete recovery.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, like I said, we're getting close on time. Daryl, let people know if they want to get in contact with you, how they can find you.
You can give me a call at 705-214-9659, or you can email me at Daryl, DARRYL, at Darunco Specialized. Just remember it stands for Daryl Runs Company, DARUNCO. Glad to reach out, give some people some advice. You want to talk money, you want to talk buying a truck, knowing your numbers, give me a call, give me an email. We'll talk.
That's so generous of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Chuck, let the people know how they can find you as well.
If I can help anybody with anything, please reach out to me, chucksnow280@outlook.com. Put your phone number on the email, and I will promise I will call you back as soon as I see your email. I don't look at them all day anymore, but I will get to you. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back. We're in a hole for another week.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you guys for taking the time to join us. We could have been anywhere else in the world, but you took some time to hang out with us. We're always grateful for you doing so. If you would, please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the show. Stay safe out there. Keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise. God bless you and good night. We'll talk at your same time, same place next week.
God bless everybody. Have a great night.
Catch you on the flip-flop.